So name's Andrew Soderberg. I've met some of you before, some of you not. I think I'm not sure I've had this many lights pointed at me since high school. And I've been with AG5 for about 3 years now, 3 years in March. And I wear, I wear a few different hats here, but by and large, my job is helping make sure that AG5 does what you need it to do so that it's delivering on the value that you're paying for. So spend a lot of time making sure that the setup works for what you need. And I talk to customers pretty much every single day. So that's me. I'm originally from the States. I'm from Oregon, but I've lived in Europe now for about 10 years, and I live in Amersfoort. So nice to meet you all. Thanks for coming here to the Q&A. And as Esme said, we've got some questions that were already funneled through to us. We're happy to take any that are on the fly. And also, if you feel like you have the answer, feel free to pipe up. Yeah.
Let's start. Let's give it a go. So the first question is why you use AG5 on top of any other HR systems?
Yeah. Anybody know the answer to that offhand? Okay. I know Rick knows. Well, you can come in.
Yeah, you can join.
So key thing there. First off, who as a customer has already integrated their HR system? So we've got one, and we get started. Edwards, yes. Okay. Yeah. Key thing is, of course, we're not an HR system, but we work best when we're integrated with one. So especially when you go beyond a certain scale. I mean, I've got some customers who are quite small, and they've got 50 to 60, 70 people. That's fine, especially if you have low turnover rate, you can manage that on your own. But when you're a larger enterprise, when you have high turnover rate, it just becomes really more of a risk than anything not integrating your HR. So, when you're small, it's nice. You don't have to do it. The HR system remains your single source of truth. Anything that lives in there that is necessary from a skills management perspective gets ported into AG5, done, right? This includes contract start dates and end dates, employment types, what's your position, which is crucially important for AG5 because that's how we know what requirements to give your employees, right? And then also, if somebody is terminated or they leave, we automatically deprovision those accounts, so it makes you more secure. It just makes it easier to get your folks up to skill as fast as possible. And that way, your HR system is, again, the single source of truth for that. So if you update someone's stuff in that system, it's going to come into AG5, and you don't have to worry about duplication, having to do the work over again, et cetera. It's really kind of a no-brainer when you're beyond a small mom and pop site. So.
Okay, so Anita and Melanie also were speaking about an LMS system.
Yeah.
So a lot of people already use an LMS system. So why use AG5 on top of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, I have a slide that could be valuable for illustrating this. So we have a deck we call our feature visuals deck, and this covers a lot of these kind of questions, and it can be kind of nice to showcase it with some imagery. So, we've got our HR system. Let's imagine we've already integrated that. So we're getting who's this person and what's their job, so we can assign them their requirements. We've covered that. That's straightforward. But you may or may not have an LMS system, right? Where you are training your people, and there's a lot of records in there. Again, the value really comes in when there's a lot of information in there, especially when it's safety oriented or when it's critical. I've talked to a few customers where they use the LMS like once or twice a year, and from their perspective, it's not that valuable to integrate it. Why would you do that? It's really a nice to have. You could, but it's also not hard to twice a year add 80 results. But when you're talking hundreds of employees, thousands of employees, or even hundreds of employees with 10, 20, 30 skills that are being certified through an LMS, trying to do that manually, taking those results from a report and LMS and adding that, how many hours of a day, how many hours in the week is somebody's valuable time being used up for that? And on top of that, let's say you've got the margin of human error, right? So let's say that person makes a mistake. It's bound to happen. That could lead to misappropriation of individuals. When you need to assign people someplace, it could lead to you getting bit during an audit. So integrating with your LMS system means you're saving a lot of time. So that person who is essentially just clerking and clicking buttons can now do more valuable things. So like Anita's presentation earlier, how do we do more with the same amount of people that we have? And it's making sure that we're completely covered from a risk perspective, because as soon as somebody completes a course, so what we can do is we can either sync your entire library from the LMS, or what we can do, and that's nice when you say, hey, we've got 10 courses in our LMS, they're all valuable, they're all important, we want them all in there. I've talked to some customers where they're like, it's a sea of garbage. There's like thousands of courses in there, but there's 15 that we absolutely need. And so we can either sync the whole thing, pull it in, or we can say we're gonna pull these 15 and only pull those ones in automatically. So we can automatically record any achievements from LMS, and this is where it gets really interesting, is we can then assign trainings in LMS based off of the requirements that we've already established in AG5. So we hire Sabrina, we give her a position, AG5 says, or let's say use Michelle here, right? So Michelle needs 5S standard. We know that right away, even though she's onboarded, because of the requirements that we already have built out in AG5. And because that 5S standard has been synced from LMS, we assign that to her in LMS, and then she gets that assignment, completes it in LMS, automatically records it. And all we had to do to kickstart this process was enter her information into the HR system.
Yeah. So maybe check with a few clients how they experience it in combination with the LMS system. Maybe KLM, do you have an LMS system?
Yeah.
And how is it working?
With Cornerstone. So when KLM employees have certain trainings they need to achieve in order to do their job, so they are mandatory. And now it's built like in AG5 they're all on red or on yellow. And once they've achieved their training within My Learning, so that's Cornerstone, our LMS system, they automatically will be updated within their mainframes. So you've got a clear overview of, okay, who needs to do which training. If you've got new trainings, you want to add to specific roles, we add them to the integration, and then they will become red. So people know they will get a message from AG5, and then they need to do the training. Once it's done, AG5 will be updated. So that's how it now works for us.
Yeah. Any other client who wants to share their experience, the combination of an LMS and AG5?
So we're just starting with us, we're also in Cornerstone.
Yeah.
We're using AG5 as our single source of truth for skills. So our LMS, as you described, Andrew, is full of so much stuff, because it's not just ours, it's the group as well. You know, I can type in a product course and it returns 10,000, course options and all different bits. So we've created a list of all of our product training, so we know exactly what we're looking for, and we'll be able to find it in the LMS, I'm sure, and it will bring through those results. But we're then using that to feed our workforce system, which is Microsoft Dynamics. So we can only assign work orders that are fully trained. So what it's doing is it's going to help eliminate the noise of the LMS, cleanse that data, and bring it in and make sure that we can assign the work. That's the intent.
Thank you for sharing your stories. Maybe you can learn from each other too. That's nice. Yeah. So, are there any questions? Yes. From you guys, we can maybe answer. Then we can continue with our own questions. So, how do we balance local skill requirements with global alignments?
Maybe one question.
Yeah, it's okay.
Do you have you both said, so what we do right now is we have Seagate talent software. We don't have a really integration, but it spits out an CSV with a certificate, and then we put it in the SFTP where it gets into in AG5. So that's our solution. That works perfectly fine. But the thing is, we want to use AG5 as our single source of truth as well. And what we do right now is go to the skill, certain skill if it's required. Then there's a link to C, or LMS. And if you click there on, you open the e-learning. But how do you do it? Is it just like it's required for you in AG5 and then you go to the LMS and find it yourself? Or do you link it directly from AG5 to your LMS, or how do you see it?
So we will have that two-way integration, and we will have a link through to the course if you haven't got it. We've got for our field service engineers, so we're global business, we've got 2,300 engineers. We've got our certification framework, so it's got all the mandated training for the different grades. And it also brings in the different product training based on their regional install base. So if they haven't got those courses, what we should be able to do once it's all working is click on that requirement, have it linked through to our LMS, and they can then register for the course. So that's the intent.
But that would only be possible if you have a full integration via the API then, or is it different?
There's not, functionally, whether we use the CSV, SFTP route or API, it's pretty much the same thing.
But it's possible, just for my knowledge, it's possible that you go on a skill and you don't just use a hyperlink, but there's like a real, is it everything other than a hyperlink that's possible there? You can go directly?
It is possible. We have something called an LTI connection where you can, if you are the end user, so you say you're an employee and you need to take a course, we can enable a feature where you can essentially go straight to that learning management course by clicking a button in AG5. That is something that a few of our customers have running. And I'd have to double check, but I think we can still use the SFTP route. If that's how we're importing data or like results, we can still set this up with that.
We also do the same for HR. It's also and then the CSV gets imported because IT didn't get the API running. But that's good, it works for us. But
yeah.
I know it's a possibility just to...
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a possibility. I would talk to us more about that.
Yeah.
That's something we can link to for you.
Okay, no, thank you.
Yeah, good question.
Thank you for your question. Any other questions? Okay, and we'll continue and start over with my third question. How do we balance local skill requirements with global alignment and standardization?
Yeah, that's a good one. Anybody want to speak to their experience with that? Here? No, okay. If you feel like speaking up, let me know. So we have, and actually, I have more slides that will help with this, but essentially, what we have is a solution for that right now, which we call global libraries.
I feel a little bit like a wizard who is taking things out of
I'm just like, oh, let me pull this one out. And I pretty much know where they are in the deck because I've delivered this so many times. There have been a few times I'm like, I think it's slide 56, and I'm right on it. So
3 years right now?
Yeah, 3 years. I mean, if I didn't have this knowledge after 3 years, it'd be a little concerning. So we have a number of global enterprises working for us, and the big challenge many people have, many enterprises have, we found, is there's different ways of doing things all over the place, right? And it could be because of mergers and acquisition. It could be because, look, it's just different parts of the world. We've done things differently historically. But now what we want to do is try to establish some sort of global standard, a certain way of working. Maybe because we want to be able to move our experts around the globe. We have a few customers where when they start up a new site, they will send experts to kind of like seed the local expertise on the ground. It's a lot easier to do that when there's a certain way of doing things for your company around the globe. That said, a complete transformation from local ways of doing things to a global standard I mean, that's not a quick process, right? That takes time, and it's not even reasonable to expect things to be universal across the board, maybe ever. So what we allow for a flexible approach. You can do both at the same time. So what we'll do is we'll have a global repository, so a place to put all of your skills, your job roles, so positions and requirements that you want to feed down everywhere. So let's say you have a site in the Netherlands, the US, and Thailand. There's going to be a bucket that has all of these in all of the downstream repositories. And then this is where the employees are actually working. And you'll note there also says local requirements. So these are controlled by whoever you've decided is controlling those. And they are not alterable. So you cannot change the skills, the requirements, the positions that come from global if you only live here. You can only do that if you're here. So that allows you to control that. But you're also allowing these local sites their own bucket to develop their own versions of those. Now, of course, some of this you have to manage with just real-world discussions about your expectations. But this allows you to very quickly control what's global, and then essentially whatever's left, you can do it locally.
Do you recognize this from Edward Facing, right? Sorry, looking at you. Yeah. No, sorry. Which company was where you? Veiligheidssregio. Do you recognize?
No, I was just wondering the other way around. So,
Yeah.
what if it comes to the need from the employee perspective? So, also in relation to the presentation this morning, Vanita, the upcoming trend of part-time working, of having multiple employees. Then from an employee perspective, I would like to share my state of competence maybe with multiple companies who are by coincidence all using AG5, of course. How would that be possible? Instead of that I have to mark
That's
all
a good
those
question,
competence
yeah.
at each company.
Yeah, because I think
Things like
it's worth to check. When you're working for the Netherlands, those are other local requirements than for the United States, but maybe you're working also at the United States.
Or even within the Netherlands.
Yeah.
For my perspective, in the fire department,
Yeah.
firefighters work for Amsterdam, but also for
Yeah.
Yeah.
It depends on how you have it set up. So with a setup like this, what you're actually looking at is 4 separate data repositories. So think, 4 buckets. And then this one is drip feeding data down to these 3. So any results, any achievements from an employee are just going to live in your local bucket. And if you want people to see that level of expertise, then an admin who has access to your bucket is going to need to log into yours. So it is possible right now. Admittedly, there is a better way of doing it, and we have plans to develop a more sophisticated. So the reason why we're doing it this way is our user account provisioning is secure, but within a repository, it's not like possible to say, okay, you've got 10 rooms in this repository, you can only go into these 5. If you're an admin, you have access to everything. If you're a team leader, you have access to your team. So we can segment things based on teams, but if you're an administrator of this local repository, we can't say, Netherlands is here, US is here, Thailand is here. We have to create completely separate repositories until we're able to develop the ability for within a single repository to have those separate buckets. So long story short, we're going to do that because what we want is for it to be easier for admins to be able to find those experts regardless of where they're located, as per your question. So right now it's possible, but it does require the person who's searching for that local talent to log out of one and log into the other, which is actually quite easy to do. If I'm living in AG5, let's say I'm living in the Netherlands one, and I'm trying to find an expert. So I can go to Expert Finder, and I can say I need to know in the Netherlands who is my best operator A. And there we go. We've got Arthur. We actually have several outstanding candidates here. So now we can get started on that. But maybe we also want to look at somebody who knows how to, I'm just adding some more criteria so that it's not 100%. So there we go. We've got 90, 81%, down to 72%. Maybe we're not super happy with that. Maybe we want candidates that are all closer to 90%. So then I can say, well, I'm an admin in all of these sites because this is my job role, is finding experts wherever they live. So I can just go here and I can quickly bounce over from this repository to another one. There we go. I just went to Thailand. Easy. So it's possible right now. But our vision for the future is doing this without having to go from Thailand to the US. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Partly.
Just on that find an expert piece.
Yeah.
More of a feature request from us, and I think we
Sure.
yeah. I like the functionality of what you've got at the moment, but we have a requirement. We do workplace task books, so it's like a workplace record of them demonstrating the skills to a certain level. And they can use that find an expert, but it obviously covers the whole region. We've got individual customer sites, and we've got different shifts and everything else as well. So to have someone actually go and find that person can be quite difficult. And also, I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, so I've updated it, but there's a workflow in the background which initiates that person to then say, okay, you've been assigned as the person who can sign off on this skill, and to have that automated in the system. Has anything changed in that respect at all, or is it planned?
I'm not sure I'm following you there.
So you've got the find an expert,
Yeah.
which tells you people that have got that skill in that region.
Yeah.
We have a particular requirement where we've got workplace skill records. Let's say we need someone to replace a pump or something like that.
Yeah.
For them to be able to find an expert in it, but to have that whole process of signing them off in the system automated, so they get a notification come through saying you've been selected as the expert on this skill. Is that all fully automated in the system as far as?
So what you're saying is that if I need somebody to do a job, they're not currently assigned to that job, but I've just found them through the expert finder in AG5, and what you're saying is how would I notify them through the system that you've been tapped to do this?
I've done some training on how to replace a pump.
Yeah.
You're an expert, you've been doing it for 3 years, and in the system I see that you're local to me, so I want you to come and observe me exchanging a pump. How's the system notifying you as an expert that you've been assigned to that?
That's a good question.
Maybe Rick knows the
Now we get some great functionality in the afternoon, and here AI can play a huge role. So we're going to demonstrate stuff. Someone else going to demonstrate some stuff. But also on the whole global and local requirement that we just saw, to answer that, you will see, I would say, join the session in 1 hour.
But the conclusion is it's not possible yet, I think.
Well, one thing you could do, and I'm not sure if this would hit your use case, is we have those workflows, right, which you can set up when a planning is created. So you could easily set up a workflow where if you add a planning to a system, to AG5 saying, I want Bob to be trained on maintaining this pump, that email can automatically go out to a user group of experts saying, hey, who can train Bob for this thing? And as long as you know exactly who those experts are, that's just one click. So you could do that. You could do that today. You could set that up, and then either using AG5 from the desktop or from our app. Once they're trained, they could just quickly upload that. Great thing about our app too is that we can now add multiple e-signatures. So let's say you're in the field and you train your guy on how to operate that pump, and you're like, hey, we got to get him up at speed as fast as possible. Just add the result, both of you sign and certify, and off you go. So it is doable, but like Rick said, we're adding even more functionality to expand on this. And regarding those workflows, which if you're not familiar, workflows are essentially email alerts, we're adding more and more of those triggers as we continue to go. So great question, Paul.
Alex, thank you for joining us. I saw you coming in. We're doing a Q&A, and we have some experts, some already active clients in this room, but also some prospects. And we just have a discussion with each other about a few topics, so please join in. Yeah. So are there any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a question on going back to the previous slide that we used about the global
Yes.
and local repositories.
Yes.
So we've got engineers that can work for a single country, Korea for example.
Yeah.
They can be taken away from that country, going to another one for 6 months, just as a temporary assignment.
Yeah.
So my question is, could we have multiple employee profiles for the same person?
Yeah, absolutely. Typically, so that kind of depends on how your HR system handles it, but absolutely.
It's got the same structure as well in HR Link. So you've got, when you go in, you can see that there are 2 assignments for this person, but only one of them is activated.
Yeah.
It kind of gives you the duration of that assignment, and then obviously it will revert back to the original one.
Yeah. We've got a customer they do a lot of secondments, concurrent employments, take someone from country A and move them to country B temporarily and back. So a few ways you could do that. So we have this concept of positions in AG5, right? I'm Tim and I could have one position or many. So we often use positions for that. You have a primary position and then we could always make that primary position dormant essentially. While their secondary position is their active one and then kind of go back. That's using the exact same employee profile. If you're moving somebody from one position to the other, we've seen setups where their employee profile is terminated in their original one and then activated in the new one and then terminated in the new one and then back to the old one and then that one's just reactivated. So because we don't delete data by default. You can always delete anything you want, but like if an employee is deactivated, it's just archived. So all those results are still there even if they're temporarily off.
We can set the amount of time that we keep the data for. So we could say that if someone resigns or goes to another company, we keep that data for 5 years.
Yeah.
In case they come back, so we've got a full record for them.
Absolutely.
To go through the same thing. Right?
Yeah, you betcha. Yeah, good question.
Okay, maybe we can look into the governance because when you are starting with AG5, maybe your governance is not like really good to use the platform. So maybe you can tell how you can set up the governance to use AG5. Or what are some tips maybe you can tell how you set up your governance?
Well, so far we've got the divisional control where I am basically building all the databases with the help from the regions. And we've got a local contact for every region that is kind of an admin user as well and is responsible for providing us the data for the skills matrices so that we can upload that into AG5. And then obviously they will take up the role of keeping up with those records and making sure that all engineers are up to date with their requirements. But we're looking at providing different kind of levels of access rights, so we don't end up with people creating their own records. That's going to mess up the whole system and become a different cornerstone LMS.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great point.
How did you do this in your organization?
Well, we had at the beginning, when we started with AG5 vision, to create one common ground for everyone to do the harmonization and standardization over all the countries where we work with AG5. At the beginning, to have a clean and fresh and cleaned up system, but we recognize that this is not possible. So therefore, we started now with this situation in each country, which is quite difficult and also different. And then in the second step, we will start to harmonize and standardize. So we started with in each country, so we are working in 3 countries, Germany, the Netherlands and UK, and we started with 1 power plant station per country and used the training matrices that they had in the country, putting everything in the system, and now we get the other stations on board step by step, and with that we changed the original structure that we set up by integrating the setup of the other stations as well to then find one common ground. But it's a lot of work and there are so many challenges coming up, also step by step. but then we see how we can solve these challenges at the moment when they pop up and not already having the big vision in the system.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
Can you maybe explain one of those challenges?
Well, I can just display the German perspective, as I'm responsible for Germany, and our biggest challenge is that we have the interface to the HR system, and there we have a catalog of the different job roles. But the job roles are used totally differently when you go then to the different stations. For example, you have the craftsman electrical at one station, and then you create the training profile for this person, and we thought we can then use this training profile for the next station for the same job role, but that is not possible because they use this job role in a different way. And therefore my biggest challenge right now is to find a solution how to use the job roles as basis, but then getting the right training profile for each station into the system by as much optimization as possible.
Okay.
I see you're recognizing the problem.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, that's quite common, right? Where, I mean, I should say I've seen it a lot where, okay, we've got this, could even be the same machine, but a slightly different variation of it, or this station's quite similar to this station, but we just do things differently in this country with that similar station. So it is possible for us to create complex requirements, right? Which is saying, if you are this job role and you work on this station and you work in this site, here's your training profile. And then if you work on this station in a different country, there's a different training profile. I think so that's 100% possible now. I think the challenge that we are working on addressing is automating that if things are changing rapidly within your organization. That is something that we have plans to fix. Because right now, you know, when you're uploading those kind of complex requirements, you'll often lean on us, the AG5 team, to do that for you with our bulk importer. But we do have plans to make that highly automated. So, but it is possible right now. You just lean on us for that.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm looking to the people who aren't working with AG5 yet.
I have a question. Yeah. It's more a general question about the framework. How do the companies that you're working with now mostly use their like AG5 in their framework? Is it, I heard like LMS, I heard procedures, SOPs, I heard job skills. I'm wondering how they mainly are using it and how you're maybe also helping them in creating that framework. Because, for example, a procedure is different than a skill. You require several skills within a procedure. Though I heard a lot of companies here saying like the procedures are their skills.
Yeah. Well, so when we say, you'll hear skill thrown around a lot. We call it skills, but a skill is, from an AG5 perspective, just anything you want to measure. So it could be an SOP, it could be a procedure, it could be a certificate. It's an AG5 skill, but that's completely custom. So a lot of AG5 is customizable because we work for a lot of different kinds of industries. So when I'm, for example, creating a skill here, I can say, what skill type is this? So these are some examples that have been built into this demo, but it could be a certificate, could be a course, a Cornerstone course, could be a Moodle course, could be an SOP. So point is, this could be a whole bunch of different stuff. It's just, are we measuring it? Are we tracking achievements against it? Then it's a skill. But it could be anything. So what I don't know if this is really answering your question, but very broadly speaking, you've got your collection of skills, as I've outlined it. Then you got your employees, and then we have a skill matrix. And so this is how a lot of people will use AG5 on a day-to-day basis. And you know, these symbols mean various different things. So, you know, ideally what you're looking, and what you're looking for really depends on the company. We've got some companies that are like, we're aiming for 90% plus compliance all the time. We've got other ones that are really more interested in capacity requirements. So we need 2 people to do this thing. We don't care which 8 of you do it. And we're gonna allow the managers to make that decision. We just need you to make sure that it's up and running at any given time. So we have a tool to help you with that. We have customers that are, instead of using this as much, they're managing it more from a flat list perspective. So what we do is we present you and visualize skill gaps, and then we make it easier for you to add and track those. So if I add this result here, I can add.
So if you're looking from a taxonomy perspective, you can also set up different layers, and that's also visible into it.
Yeah, so like we can set up prerequisites. So we could say, for example, we're going to require that you are SOP expert V, and in order to be that, you have to achieve these 22 different things. And then maybe being an SOP expert V feeds into another higher thing. Mm-hmm. So these prerequisites, we call them. You can set those up.
That works really well for us, actually, because we've got 3 levels of training with foundation, professional, and expert. Mm-hmm. So to go to a professional course, you have to have done a foundation.
Yeah.
But also we've got prerequisites in the actual course itself. So our professional level training is instructor-led training, plus they need to go through a number of SOPs.
Okay.
So you can have all those as individual elements that wrap up into the actual course.
In the level, you have those requirements.
Yeah, so if you build a course here in AG5, you could have the constituent parts of that course, and it could be that they do the instructor-led training, they've done that bit, you can see their progress against it, but they've yet to go through the SOPs. Once they've had those signed off, it wraps up and says you've now completed the overall course.
Okay.
So that works quite nicely like this.
Okay. From my understanding, your company, they had a standardized framework, right? So they don't have any flexible skills that you can add up per region.
So we've got our product training, which is based on the regional install base.
Yeah.
That's fairly fixed, but we've got technical training, we've got mandatory shitting and other bits and bobs. So there is a little bit of flexibility based on the region.
Okay.
Okay, I'm looking at the time. We have a few minutes left, so.
One question.
Yes.
So we have some theoretical trainings, but also practical.
Yeah.
Also practical testing. Are you put that in AG5?
Yeah, so you could categorize, we'll see that a lot where when you create a skill in AG5, so we not only have the skill type, but whatever category it is, so is this a soft skill, is this a hard skill, is it a practical skill? The rating scales kind of going to, you can establish different rating scales for different kinds of skills, and that's one of the reasons why we've invested a lot in the app, because if you're certifying people on the floor, they're actually doing a thing. A lot of those operators don't necessarily have ready access to a computer or even an email address necessarily, unless you're a team lead or something. So we needed an easy way for you to be able to quickly add that result into the system so that admins can use that information and shift plan. So not only can the app allow for you to take pictures, but you can also add e-signatures, and we are developing a feature this quarter called checklists and quizzes, where you can verify before you a result that yes, I did this. That's the checklist. And then the quizzes where you can build the quiz in AG5. Previously, we've leaned on integrations with LMSs for quizzes. And if you still want LMS functionality, you'll still want to integrate. But we had so many customers saying, we don't have an LMS, but we really need to be able to test these people before we do it. And if you want us to go from paper to digital, how are we going to do that? So we realized we had to develop this. So you can build out a quiz. You'll be able to build out a quiz in AG5 that says 70%, 80% is a pass. We're going to add in these pool of questions. It's going to randomly give you these. So those tools will be soon in your fingertips.
When we integrate FlowSpark, we don't have to build a quiz in FlowSpark, but building the quiz in AG5 and stuff.
Yeah, that will soon be possible.
It's going to be quite nice, if you, for example, you have an SOP and that changes all the time, so we have skills versioning. So if something changed in the whole SOP, we can select, okay, that has changed. We can automatically make a quiz out of that thing, because normally it's like read and understand, but now we can make it like a quiz, that he has to read it and then it's an answer and then it's asked.
Yeah.
And especially with the skills versioning, because we see skills during a few years, you have different versions of a skill. You don't have to put new skills in.
Exactly. Well put, Rick. And on top of that, so this skill version, right, this is where we have these valid results. We can come in and we can do it manually and create a new version, but we're also going to be introducing an integration with SharePoint to start with, but other document management systems. So if you're changing the SOP in SharePoint, that can trigger a new version in AG5 automatically, which then notifies all the people, hey, you need to retrain.
There was another comment or question over here.
Yeah, so if I understand correctly, if you want to add a result in the app in the future, then the requirements to get that result in can be a quiz.
They can be, yes.
Okay, so that's...
And it's optional. You choose if you want it to be or not.
That's good, okay. And then the e-signature, is that something that's already there?
Yes, absolutely. You can actually add as many as you want. So,
and is it just an option? Because now I see a picture and I see the option document, and I don't see the option e-signature. Is it only with the self?
It's one more step. I think if you click one more to the next step, then you will be able to add these.
yeah, thank you, Emil.
Is it new, brand new?
Newish, like in the last 6 months. The e-signature, I think, was about a year ago, but in the last 6 months or so, we made it possible for you to have multiple. So you could be the employee, but you could also say, hey, I'm the trainer, I'm the manager, I'm the supervisor, whatever.
And just to get it, if somebody follows a classroom training, by example, and we say we design it that the trainer, everyone who gets his training required, he can see it in AG5, so that in the end of the session, he can just let them sign up. That's an option. We added the ability for multiple, for exactly this reason. So yes.
Okay, you're looking really proud.
I'm very satisfied. Yeah.
Okay, so there is room for one more question. Are there any more questions? Okay. And we're gonna, it's possible. Yeah.
One more question. What are the opportunities, probably many, in terms of reporting, for example, time to competence, and I'm just curious.
That's a great question. I'll start with the older stuff first. So almost every single page in AG5, you can export something in as an Excel doc. So that's straightforward. If you want to build your own stuff, you can just quickly export it. Almost all these pages, all these pages are going to have a custom export too, where you can choose which data fields you want to pull out. So that's the boring old school way of doing it, but obviously effective. Additionally, one thing we're quite happy with, and if you look at our roadmap, you can see that every quarter we're adding to it. This is our Insights dashboard. So what this is focused on primarily is going to be compliance. And you can look at an entire repository, or you can filter that down to a team level. And this is going to visualize it. So this can be, especially if we're saying, let's compare machine to machine, or department to department. So if we had, here we are. So we've got multiple departments. So we can compare them against each other. Obviously, they have some work to do. This is very poor performance. This can be exported. So we have this Insights dashboard that visualizes this. And we also have an API, which many of our customers have connected. So you're basically connecting to our database, and you can build a Power BI report. Especially valuable if you have more than one site, because you can tap into every single one of those and get an aggregated view of everything. Yeah, great question.
Okay, thank you everyone. Let's take a break, and I'm expecting you in the room next door. Let me give you a time slot at 14:45. So we have a little break of 20 minutes. Thank you, and if you have another question, you can also always...
Feel free to grab me. Thanks for your time, everyone.
Thank you.